All right, it is 1 o'clock, and so I'd like to say hello and welcome to the Rails Burr Ridge Service Center. I'm Kate Hall, president of the Rails Board, and I call this meeting to order today on January 26th at 1 p.m. Emily, would you please call roll?
Sure. Christine Barr.
Here.
Dave Barry.
Here.
Sue Busenbart.
Here.
Judy Crocker.
I'm here, Emily.
Gotcha. Judy Crocker.
Okay.
Gwen Gregory.
Here.
Kate Hall.
Here.
Laura Keys.
Here.
Paul Mills.
Here.
Scott Poynton.
Here.
Dee Runnels. Nadia Shake.
Here.
Michelle Simmons.
Here.
Joe Skabinski. Laura Turner. Lori Wilcox.
All right. And so let's start here in Burr Ridge with our guests. Dee, would you mind starting?
Yes, Deirdre Brennan, Rails.
Jane Plass, Rails.
Emily Feister, Rails.
Mark Hatch, Rails.
Jim Krieger, Rails.
Mary Witt, Rails.
Ryan Heppel, Rails.
Joe Philippek, Rails.
Luis Vela Rails.
Ann Slaughter, Rails.
Veronica Pitchford, Rails.
Right, and then let's move on to Bolingbrook, although since it is completely dark, I don't think we have anyone there. Cole Valley.
Todd Williams, Rails.
Thanks, Todd. And East Peoria.
Hi, Kendall Orison, Rails.
Thanks, Kendall. And the State Library.
Deborah Aggert.
Greg McCormick.
Karen Egan.
Wonderful. And Freeport, it doesn't look like is...
They're double booked, so they're
Oh, okay, so
online
they're
today.
not here. And Galesburg, it does not look like anyone is there either. Judy, is anyone joining you in Quincy? No, did we lose sound with Judy?
Judy,
Laura on
we
the
can't.
phone.
Oh, hi, Laura.
Thanks,
Okay.
Laura.
Laura.
We're trying
Doing
to.
visitors. Okay, and it doesn't look like there's anyone at Vernon. Judy, can you just confirm that you can hear us and we can hear you?
Lord, a wave.
No, I can't tell with the lighting if Judy is still sitting there.
She is, I think, isn't she?
All right.
I'm working on it.
Ryan
Okay.
is working on it. Okay,
We'll
great.
get that sorted out.
And do we have any other any visitors on the phone? Okay. And do we have any public comments at any of our locations? Looks like not. So then we will move right on to adoption of the agenda. May I please have a motion and second for adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Thanks, Paul. And second, thanks, Nadia. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to minutes, may I have a motion for approval of the November 17th, 2017 Rails Board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thanks, Dave. And a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Scott. Any comments on the minutes? All right, then all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to the financial reports, we have Jim Krieger here to present.
Good afternoon. In your board package, you have financial reports for the month of November 2017 and December 2017, as well as my written report. My written report basically covers through December 31st, the 2-month period. At the end of the calendar year, our unassigned general fund cash and investment balances were about 10.7 million, which would fund 11.5 months of operation. So we've gone just under a year now. $3,962,000 from last year's area per capita grant is still outstanding, but I understand there may be some money on the way. So we'll hope for that. Our revenues through December were $2,783,000 below budget due to the area per capita grant revenue shortfall of $3 million so far. A highlight is investment income is virtually double what our budget was due to the nice increase in rates. They're above 1% now. If we're able to maintain this, our cash balances and get some money in, we should keep this variance up and approximately double our budget this year, which would be a nice boost. Also in December, we received an E-rate reimbursement of $4,491. We expect a final payment of about $1,800, which we did receive. So we've received everything that we applied for this year, but we don't budget that amount due to some uncertainties in the process. On the second page, I presented a summary of expenditures versus budget. Our general fund expenditures are $497,000 below budget through December. Better than half of this were personnel expenses. The salaries were $129,000 below budget. Some of this variance will begin to decline. We had two new positions budgeted, one of which we have just now recently filled, and an existing position that was vacated, and we are interviewing for that. So some of that will go down, but what we've got through the year will carry. We won't go negative by any means. Also, our health and dental and life has been under budget. We did budget for some increases, but our rates for 2018 are the same as 2017, so that should stay. And our retirement benefits through December were $60,288 below budget. That will still be slightly favorable, but a higher rate kicked in for 2018. Now, we're well below budget on contractual services expenditures, but that will most likely dissipate as we, some of that is timing issues of budget of bills arriving in January that pertain to December, and also we will begin spending some money on the overlay project, which will go against that. Our capital projects fund, we completed our spending on the Burr Ridge renovation for the year. We're $251,781 below budget on that item. $172,000 of this was because we spent it in the prior year, but overall we came in about $80,000 under our what we had budgeted for this whole project to cost. Other spending, we have 3 automobiles on order, so we'll be seeing some spending on that over the remainder of the year. Can I answer any questions?
Yep.
Yes.
Where did we make up that $80,000? How did that happen? I'm very happy.
Yeah, it's great.
We had contingencies built in,
Okay.
about a 10% contingency or so
That we didn't need to use.
that we didn't use. So we stayed within the contract.
Nicely done.
Mark was watching them all the time.
Oh, I bet, yeah. Does anyone have any other questions for Jim on the financial report? All right, hearing no other questions, may I have a motion for approval of the financial report for November and December of 2017?
I so move.
All right, thanks, Laura. And a second, please?
Second.
All right, we'll give it to Christine. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries. And as usual, we get to hear again immediately from Jim on the approval of expenditures.
We have, at the end of the reports, there's an expenditure listing. probably should do these individually, I guess. For November and December.
Oh, sure.
Okay, the November amount spent was $1,348,584.13. I would have full approval of that.
Okay, well, it's actually on the December.
I just have a
Do
quick
you-
question.
yeah, sure.
Yes,
It's
right
probably more for Dee, but under J.L. Brady Company to replace, install AC, is that part of the renovation or do you need an air conditioning unit somewhere?
At Cole Valley? I think that's for Cole Valley, right? CB?
Was that the
No, we
HVAC?
replaced compressors here.
Oh, okay, was that part of like the renovation?
No,
Just
that's totally separate.
one of them just broke down?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And this is similarly, I was wondering on a
Are
couple
you
of.
on December or?
I'm on December. There was a couple. The one I noted was Russell Company's Electric, where it says repair photo eye on exterior of building. Can we, for when we're making the notes, just note which building?
Sure.
In the future, I figured it was for here. Is that an accurate?
What's it, what was the
It was
vendor?
Russell Company's Electric. It was only like $190. It
Yep.
was a small
Sure.
amount.
Oh, I see it, yep.
In Rockford,
Photo eye on exterior building.
Rockford?
that was Rockford, I believe.
Okay. And there were a couple others. I didn't
Okay.
note them.
I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Coal Valley.
Oh, it was called that. Okay. If we could just note which building it's for.
Was this the camera issue?
Hey, Todd, did you want to?
The general
no, it
camera
wa-
issue?
No, it was a light issue. We had a sensor burn out, and that's right where in the nighttime hours for the delivery, they couldn't see it, and it became a safety hazard, so we had to change it.
Oh, sure. I mean, the changing makes
Right,
sense
right,
just
yeah.
for where things are. And then also on that same for Westtown Mechanical, there was a replace the heat exchanger at Bolingbrook.
Correct.
And I was curious because we're leasing Bolingbrook.
Yeah, but
Correct.
Yes.
still have
But-
response.
Our contract is written, the inside of the building is ours. The
okay.
landlord is responsible for the exterior and the,
Okay.
it was our responsibility.
I assumed it was something like that, but
Yeah, Peoria is the same way. Some of it's us, some of it's them.
okay. All right. So I know we kind of dipped into
That's perfectly fine. No, no,
December,
no.
but
Yeah.
does anyone have any other questions on the November expenditures? All right, then I would ask for a motion to approve the check voucher register for November in the amount of $1,348,584.13. Thanks, Paul. In a second.
Second.
Thanks, Scott. Emily, will you please call roll?
Sure. Christine Barr? Yes. Dave Barry?
Yes.
Sue Busenbarg?
Yes.
Judy Crocker?
Yes.
Gwen Gregory? Kate Hall?
Yes.
Laura Keys?
Yes.
Paul Mills?
Yes.
Scott Poynton?
Yes.
Nadia Shake?
Yes.
Michelle Simmons?
Yes.
And Laura Turner?
Yes.
Right. And so now we'll officially move on to the December expenditure.
Yeah, December listing is at the end of the December report, and the amount spent in December was $741,924.66.
Right. Have any questions on the December bills that haven't already been asked? All right, hearing no questions then, may I please have a motion to approve the check voucher register for December 2017 in the amount of $741,924.66.
So moved.
Thanks,
Second.
Paul. And a second from Dave, thank you. Emily, will you please call roll?
Christine Barr?
Yes.
Dave Barry?
Yes.
Sue Busenbarg?
Yes.
Judy Crocker?
Yes.
Gwen Gregory?
Yes.
Kate Hall?
Yes.
Laura Keys?
Yes.
Paul Mills?
Yes.
Scott Poynton?
Yes.
Nadia Shake?
Yes.
Michelle Simmons?
Yes.
Laura Turner?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Jim. moving along to reports, I just had two brief things that I wanted to mention, which Dee is probably going to mention in her report as well. I'm very excited that we have our committee for the resource sharing and wanted to thank Christine and Gwen for agreeing to be on that. Having a multi-type representation on the committee was something that Dee and I both felt very strongly about, and so we're very grateful to have two board members that represent school and academic libraries serving on it. So thank you very much. And I know we'll be getting started with that soon. I also wanted to just mention, for those of you who did not maybe notice in the Rails e-news, the Elevate for the new leadership training that kind of was a result of Synergy is something that people can now apply for. This is something that a large group of people have spent quite some time figuring out how to continue doing Synergy, which was run by the state library for a number of years to help with developing leaders within the Illinois library community. So I, as someone who got to go through Synergy, am very excited to see, not an exact replica, but to see a leadership training continue in this. I know Rails staff were instrumental in helping that happen, and so if you have not had a chance, I would encourage everyone to take a look and recommend people from your library apply, and just keep your eye out for future things. Betsy Adamowski was the chair and is very excited about this.
Driving
and,
force.
yes, and hoping to continue it and do even more. So if you have not seen that, please take a look. And that is all I have. And I'm sure Dee will talk about that in
Thank
more
you for-
depth and more eloquently.
Thank you for that advertisement.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And so the committee reports. Paul, could you give us an update on the consortia committee?
I can, ma'am. The consortia committee met this past Monday, right here in this room, in fact. We discussed the revised consortia committee charge. Also, we discussed the resource sharing committee's new charge, too. So I thought that was a good conversation. We briefly touched on Rails' FY 2020 consortial support grant. Work on that is ongoing with Rails staff. Had a very interesting discussion, a combination of trends affecting shared Catalog consortia, which Dee nicely tied into the strategic planning process that she's been doing about what keeps you up at night. And I thought that was a really, really good conversation, and Jane is going to incorporate that into the minutes for the committee meeting, and I would encourage you to read that when it comes out, because that was a really good conversation. Other news, we had our reports. And we're going to have to try to figure out when we can next meet because there's many conflicts this spring. Jane, anything else I missed from our meeting?
And I believe we have April 23rd nailed
Yes.
down for our next meeting. So.
That will hopefully work. Many things going on.
All right, thanks so much, Paul.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Does anyone have any questions for Paul about the consortia committee? No? All right, then moving on, we did not have an executive committee meeting, so there is nothing to report. And Laura, do you have any report for the policy committee?
No, I do not.
All right. I believe
They did not
policy will be meeting soonish.
Yes. We are, as I think I have reported, but it was a long time ago that we met, so it's understandable if you have forgotten some of these
Right, yeah.
scintillating things. But we are looking at the entire employee handbook. So we want to do a major, overhaul of that. So that's going to take a little while.
We look forward to seeing that. I mean, I love policy, so I think that's fascinating, but maybe not everyone feels
It's
the same way. So then we will move right along to the Rails reports. Dee, would you like to give your report?
Sure, thank you. First of all, since you mentioned the Resource Sharing Committee, I don't know if I put it in my written report, but I can tell you who's on it in addition to our illustrious board members. The other illustrious members are Sharm Runke, who's going to chair it. She's the director of the Peru Public Library, and she's had a lot of experience both in consortia as well as just in library systems in Illinois resource sharing. Ryan Livergood from the Warren Newport Public Library, a standalone library, has a lot of experience in another state. Brian Chase from Normal Public Library, Jeannie Modelsky, I think I said that right, Modelsky from NALCO, a special library rep. Michelle Rubel from Joliet Community College. Sia Paganis from Itasca School District. And Andy Allen from the Serena School District in, I forget, Serena, I guess.
They're in Prairie Cat.
They're in Prairie Cat. So, yes, it's a really good mix of libraries that are in consortia, libraries that are not, and libraries of different types and geographic. So I think it's going to be great. Okay, so the rest of my report, I did include a written report, extensive, on the report on progress on my goals, just because I thought it might be helpful. You may wonder what I do all day, and this may help to illuminate that. It's also inevitably information, my goals and Rails goals are intertwined, so I think it also gives you some insight into, why we do things and progress through the year on our plan of service and my goals and other staff individual goals. I think, you just heard Jim talk about that we're below budget in a number of areas. I think that's, it's more evidence of the number 3 there on the first page, and sure, in terms of looking at financial sustainability and always looking, for ways to reduce costs. I'm sure you all read this. I hope you all read it, so I won't go through it unless you want me to answer any questions or go into any more depth about anything. Anybody anywhere? All right. And then in terms of the rest of my report, I would highlight that I did a lot of member engagement over the past couple months. I really enjoy those trips. I learn a lot. And I was out in Quincy doing some facilitation. I was at Warren County meeting with Michelle and Larissa about the unserved. I met with Mary Case at UIC and Gwen, and we talked about, among other things, the overlay, which had a good, was helpful in a positive result there, which you'll be hearing about more. We had a meeting with NIC, which is the Northern Illinois Consortium Cooperative, about their potentially moving to Prairie Cat. I went to Dave's library because Bartlett is looking at joining a consortium. So there's a lot of things going on right now that are very exciting. Member update last week was really well attended. We had about 150 people, I think. 165. 95 streamers. We had a great conversation about what keeps you up at night. And I've been meeting with the delivery staff in person at the different sites. I still have to get up to Rockford because I want to hear from them, in person about how they're doing and what their needs are, because it's a big number of people of our workforce who we don't see them much. They don't see each other because of the nature of their work. They work 24 hours. The service goes 24 hours. So it's been a busy couple months. Be happy to answer any questions.
And hearing no questions, would you like to go into the service and operations report?
Sure. Well, some of it I already mentioned. We are working on, you'll be hearing more about Find More Illinois, Explore More, the museum and cultural attraction program we're hoping to launch later in the spring. Elevate, as you pointed out, I'm happy about that. We've managed to find a very affordable alternative to Synergy, which, isn't Synergy, but in terms of the face-to-face and the intense collaboration, the intense learning, but I think it's going to be great, and I think its affordability means it will be more sustainable, which is a very important thing. So,
And it's focused around StrengthsFinder.
yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah, so that's a good assessment tool.
yes. You also have attached to my report the consortial reports, which we deliver to you quarterly after the consortia committee meeting. Any questions? I'm going to let Greg deliver the really happy news.
I think Laura might have
Yes.
a question.
I do have a question on the service and operations report. It caught my eye that there's going to be a webinar on sexual harassment in the workplace. And so I took the time to go on to L2 and read like the whole description. I was just wondering, is that webinar actually for managers and how managers can best organize a workshop, or what's that all about?
My recollection is.
We're all looking at Joe.
Right, correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Can you recollect over by the microphone?
That's good. So I think yes. I think the short answer is yes. More for management staff
And before you go in, can you
yes.
just verify who you are for the audience at
Is there
home?
anybody who
So
doesn't
good.
know who he is?
Well,
Okay.
Joe Philippek, continuing education consulting, born on no. No, I
Joe.
think largely for management staff and largely what we wanted to be careful about is doing a 60-minute webinar and having people think they're done. So it's really for managers to begin to think about how they take that back to their staff and provide both the training and the discussion. And then we'll be following that up with another workshop that will be when, Louise? In end of April. That will kind of, I think, complement that webinar.
Okay, so these webinars are for the managers and not really the all staff.
I think it's going to be most
Okay.
and it will be recorded and archived. So if you watch it, and we'll have it for a little while available as an archive recording. So if you feel like the content appropriate for your staff, but I think at least initially managers are going to be able to use that information to then tailor it to what they're going to do for the rest of their staff.
Thank you for the clarification.
You bet.
Thanks, Joe. Any other questions for Dee on her report, service and operations, or consortia reports? All right, hearing none, then we will head over to the State Library for their report.
I apologize. It's terrible when I need my glasses to hit the right button on this thing. So. Wow. Thank you. Hello from Secretary of State, State Librarian Jesse White, and of course the staff here at the State Library. We'll try to keep this as brief as possible. We do have a list of things. Of course, the Public Library Annual Report was opened on January 2nd. We have a large number of libraries that have already responded to that, and I don't have that exact number ahead of me, but that is going well as library certification, which also opens simultaneously, which impacts, of course, your membership. Public library per capita grant applications for FY18, and I will explain why I'm emphasizing that, are in. We are in the process of reviewing those and getting anxious to get the calculations done. I think we're at a high number again of applicants this year, and we're pleased to see that, even though I know Everyone has not been paid yet for FY17, and I'll get to that in just a moment. School per capita grants. Those awards have been made and are out to each of those school districts. Those payments have been forwarded to the state comptroller's office. Of course, they too are held at the moment. We have construction grants in the office for the Live and Learn construction grants, applications for FY18. We have done preliminary reviews of those applications. We are going back out to each, I think about all of the libraries that applied for a bit more information from each one. We'll be anxious to finalize those reviews and get those awards made to public libraries as well. Literacy grant applications for FY19 are due February 1st. That date was moved up this year, but it seems to be going well. And honestly, we hope we have more interest in those grant awards this year than what we saw in FY18. Our staff has been trying to work very closely with historical applicants to that program, even reaching out to public libraries interested as well. A number of you have probably been following the ARSL conference that will be held here in Springfield, September 13 through 15. That's the Rural Libraries Conference. It's a national organization. We're somewhat hosting it and assisting that group with it. We expect, or they expect, 600 attendees from across the country. There will be a reception here at the State Library on September 13th. I mention this because early bird registration is April 3rd. I don't know how many of your libraries are members or have been paying close attention, but hopefully they will be looking at that and seeking attendance at that. The Illinois Reads program, which the secretary chairs with the Illinois Reading Council, their poster and promotional materials actually arrived today about 11:30 a.m. We'll be distributing that information to schools and libraries across the state for the Illinois Reading Council. There is a major unveiling in DuQuoin, March, do you know the exact? 10th. March 10th, we believe. So you'll be seeing more promotion about that. Letters About Literature program, which we administer with the, in conjunction with the Library of Congress. Again, Illinois has a huge response to that program, primarily through schools, of course, and some school libraries. We are typically the leader, if not one of the top leaders in entries into that. And for consideration of our national finalists, we received 6,000 letters from students this year. And we are in the process of reviewing those now. So that is an ongoing, very successful program. Again, I think you've heard me say this before. If you've ever attended one of those, it can be quite moving at one of those award ceremonies. It is amazing. The book titles that those students select, and to write the letter back to the what that book meant to them. It is, frankly, not what you typically think they would select and write about. And is a really, really great program. Probably better news than anyone could ever hope. First, we have been successful in getting the Build Illinois bond money released to a number or 5 libraries. this is big dollars, almost $10 million was released. This has been, at a stalemate because of the budget impasse. The Aurora Public Library, Chicago Public Library, DeKalb, Sandwich, Home, really, obviously the majority are members of your library systems, all have checks in hand. Some for the complete amount due, some we will close out very, very soon, but they all did receive sizable payments. In addition to that, just yesterday, and you've heard us speak before, please do apply for these grants in FY18. I realize you don't have all of your payments for FY17, but we have been monitoring this and working as closely as possible with the state comptroller to make sure the money is transferred into the Live and Learn Fund so that these payments can be issued. Yesterday afternoon, a sizable amount was transferred, $6.3 million, which doesn't get all of this taken care of, but what it will do is assure that the Rails payment of over $3.9 million is released. I would expect you will have that by the end of next week, or I hope. Certainly, we will get through all of the school library grants from FY17, and we will begin payment, because we cannot liquidate all of it, the public library per capita payments. And quite honestly, how we do that with those big runs is we simply go in the sequence of the date of the voucher when we created it here in our office and go through the list. It's a bit more complicated on how those are released, and I won't go in that with you on voucher production, but if you can envision, it's supposed to be a monthly transfer. We issue the vouchers based upon what money should be in the account. And so this year we're going back and releasing those in that same sequence and treat everyone as fairly as possible. So I think that's good news. That's, $16 million worth of payments we're processing for libraries. So.
Awesome.
Thank you. That's fantastic
That's
news.
it.
Yes, thank
Questions?
No? We're all just so excited that money is coming in. Everyone is stuck in silence.
Hopefully, it's just the beginning, Greg.
Hopefully
Yeah.
it is just the beginning. It's amazing that, in 3 weeks we're doing all of this. So it's good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for all of the updates, as well as the soon release of the funds, or I should say the check that we should be receiving here at Rails and for the school and public libraries. That's really wonderful news.
Good.
Yeah. So then, moving right along to new business, we have some information that Dee included on the packet for the Village of Coal Valley's request to annex the Coal Valley Service Center. So, Dee, would you like to add anything to what you had or summarize?
I think Mark is going to come up here, if
Brilliant.
that's okay.
Absolutely.
What I know about this is that this request came from the Village of Coal Valley. The phrase annexing, perhaps is a little scary, but really what they're doing is our service center is not technically within the village, and so they offered this to us. We will get better police and fire protection, and there really is no downside.
And I imagine some upsides in terms of the saleability.
I would think it would be a good thing. Yes.
We should probably let Mark, who is the expert on this, speak.
There is a memo, but yes, it's in process.
That's right. It is actually in process. The thing that was also very beneficial was the ability to market our property on their website, which I thought was great, which would help us sell the building in the long run. The water bill would also go down because we're now using city water at a different rate. Calculated, it would probably save us about $1,100 a year, versus what we're paying right now. So, but overall, I think it's a win-win. It was also the perfect time to change the zoning on the building from residential 1, which required a special use permit, to B2 zoning, commercial zoning. So we would no longer have to issue or request a special use permit. And then also, it doesn't affect our tax exempt status in no way, shape, or form. So it's actually a win-win for us to proceed
Dave,
with that.
did you have a question?
I have two things. First of all, you know, background, why they decided to come forward at this time to annex the property?
I don't know for sure, but I think if it was sold to a for-profit organization, that's tax dollars that they would actually be receiving.
Okay.
Versus, they receive nothing from us at this point, so if they sold it to a company that paid taxes, that would be a win-win for them.
Okay. The second thing is, we'll have better fire protection. So should we get any sort of on our next insurance policy, would that go down because we have
The fire protection doesn't change. That stays the same as far as who's going to respond. So the fire protection stays the exact same. The only thing that's changing from would be the police, where it would be the village of Coal Valley responding versus the sheriff department. That's going to be the only difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would that impact any of the liability insurance in terms of being safer? They probably will just like that that's true.
Yeah. Usually you don't see a discount or
Yeah.
anything like that because they're still saying you're getting protection one way or the other. Yeah.
Right. Does anyone have any other questions for Mark concerning the request to annex? Laura?
What's the time frame for this whole process?
It has to go to their board, which would be February the 28th. Usually there's 2 readings, but they believe that because this is so simple and cut and dry that they will waive the second reading and make the approval on February the 28th. They'll actually do the vote at that time.
Okay.
So keep our fingers crossed. It'll be done as of March 1st.
Thank you.
Great. Any additional questions? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion for approval to proceed with the rezoning and annexation of the Coal Valley property into the village of Coal Valley?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Dave. Any additional discussion on this item? All right, then, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries. And speaking of sexual harassment policies,
Right.
that is what we have up next. I think that this probably looks very familiar to all of us
Yes,
because
right.
we've all been looking at these all month with our boards,
Right.
probably.
Right. I'm sure it is no surprise to you that we are doing this, since I'm sure you have all been doing it as well. Just so you know, we have had since we were started, I believe, have had a sexual harassment policy, but, to be, strictly by the book, et cetera, our attorney recommended, and made sense to me, that the board pass the specific ordinance that was sort of prescribed by the General Assembly. So that's what we have here.
And also then updating. I know we
Yes.
updated our actual policy. It had
Yep.
most of the things in it, but there were just a few little things
Right.
that.
Well, for example, there's a whistleblower piece.
Right.
We did not have that in our sexual harassment policy, but we have a whistleblower policy.
Right.
So this just makes it extra clear.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the sexual harassment ordinance and policy that are being presented today? All right, hearing no questions, may I have a motion for approval of the Rails Sexual Harassment Ordinance number 1801?
So moved.
All right, thanks, Scott. Thanks, Nadia. Any additional or questions or comments on this? All right, then all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh. Thank you, everyone. Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to the board meeting schedule. Dee had put some information in our packet with some potential changes.
Yes. So, for this year, the first question is that March 30th, which is a week later than our usual board meeting, but we moved it to March 30th because of PLA being the week before, the Public Library Association Conference. March 30th is Good Friday this year. Obviously, that is not any kind of a legal holiday, but I know that people have, their personal lives that may take precedence over attending a Rails board meeting on that particular day. So we wanted to check in with people about that, if we should move it. And if we should move it, I would suggest that we move it to March 16th and go to East Peoria. And that would enable us to have the April meeting in Burr Ridge, which would mean that Mitchell Davis, who is our colleague at Biblio Labs, who is going to be here for a conference, he would like to come to the board meeting and thank the board for the leadership that the board has shown in being a very early adopter of Biblio Labs. So those are the two issues for this year. So what is your pleasure?
Well, the only thing, I can probably make it work, but when we were going to meet in East Peoria on April 27th.
You moved something.
That was going to be fabulous because then I could just continue
right.
on to Springfield
That's
for Elevate.
Right. Me too.
Well,
yeah.
Here is the really good news. You can still meet in East Peoria on the 27th.
Yeah.
And join our regular East Peoria. Sue is out, there, and Kendall. So you can still go there, even if we move the official main meeting. And I told Dee I am going to have to be at Vernon on April 27th. So whether we're in East Peoria or Burr Ridge,
you will be in
I'm
Vernon.
going to be in Vernon, and anyone who wants to is welcome to come join me there.
I might join you in East Peoria because I was planning to continue on to Champaign and see John Prine in concert. So just maybe that could be cool.
Scott and I have a conflict on March 16th.
Okay.
We have another board meeting that day.
In the afternoon.
I have another conflict
on that day. So March 16th, it sounds like
doesn't work
I'm
anyway.
good with the 30th of March.
I can make the 30th of March.
Okay. We just wanted to check, like I say.
So does anyone have?
It doesn't come up very often.
No, I mean, I know we don't need to have everyone. We can just have a quorum. But does anyone have an issue with keeping it on March 30th? Okay.
Sue and I probably do, but
okay,
you'll probably still have a quorum. So.
Okay. Got that, Emily?
So would the 30th be, would March 16th be in East Peoria, or would March 30th be, where would the location be?
We're going to have to
figure that out.
check on that.
Okay.
Because we didn't check on March 30th, right?
Okay.
Or East Peoria. We just checked on March 16th.
Well, March 30th was already a date for.
Okay, so we're good on March 30th.
In East Peoria.
So I think
But that's different, saying, is everyone okay to have the meeting there versus are people okay to drive there on that day?
Right, so I guess that is a question now. If we put the meeting on March 30th, will people be able to drive to? I mean, the point is we want to have we like to travel around.
Right, and
It
that
would
we'd
be-
like to have people going
Right,
there.
it would be better, I think, although it sounds like some people will not be here anyway at the April meeting. I mean, Mitchell does this. We don't have to do this with Mitchell. He requested this. I'm not trying to mess up people's lives here. So it would be nice if we could accommodate it, right, Veranda? I mean, that would be great, but, it doesn't have to be. We could always be in East Peoria and he could be here. So, well, it's not great, but we can keep everything the way it is, too. Or we can go to East Peoria on May 30th and stay here. I guess that's the question at the moment.
So for the March 30th date, do people have a preference of Burr Ridge versus East Peoria?
I do not have a preference.
Burr Ridge.
And then in April, we would go to East Peoria. Okay. All right.
And then Mitchell could still come here.
Yeah, sure.
Other people can make sure he is.
No, he won't come here then? Yes,
No,
he
I
will.
was,
Yeah.
of course.
Yes, okay. There obviously will be people
Okay.
here, yes.
So,
Okay, so we're not changing
long
anything.
Story short, everything is staying the same.
Yes, everything is staying the same. That is
For
just
this calendar
for
year.
this year, for this
Okay.
fiscal year.
Okay.
Not fiscal.
Oh, sorry. For
Yeah.
this fiscal year, and
Right.
then did
And
you
then-
want to talk a little bit about
Well,
next fiscal year?
Yeah, just because, we like to have the July meeting kind of
Right.
organized because,
Yeah.
yeah. So, we picked July 27th for our in-service day because that was pretty much it. And that would be the normal board meeting date. So we are saying either the 20th or the 26th, which is a Thursday. Personally, the 26th would be better for me. And
Yeah, Paul and I have a conflict on the 20th, same conflict.
is it okay.
It's the pinnacle board meeting.
Pinnacle board meeting.
Ah,
But-
would the 26th potentially work all these months ahead of time? Okay, so then we're gonna put it tentatively as the 26th. I mean, it's still going to, depend somewhat on whoever the new board members are, but we have to have something on the books.
So if you want to tentatively mark your calendars, mark them for the 26th.
Okay, yeah, you don't have to vote on
Uh,
anything. Yes,
The, Sue in Peoria.
yes.
So Friday, March 23rd is not an option?
No, because that is the PLA conference, so a lot of
Okay,
staff will
okay.
be at that, yes, yep.
Oh, I see now. I see where you noted
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yep. So we're leaving it exactly as it was, as it has been.
So we're not making any
not making-
motions because there are no changes.
Right,
And you have
and next year
and
is
we have
next
logged
year.
that the 26th is tentatively what
Yes.
we're going to do.
Exactly,
But we're not taking any official
No.
action on that just yet.
just, right.
So-
Okay, great, okay, yes, thank you very much, sorry about all that,
Scheduling
but.
dates.
Yeah, well,
Someday
this
it will
year
be
is,
easy.
yeah, every year when there's PLA, it's that much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's good to do it ahead of time.
yes.
Yeah. All right, next up, we have the FY 2019 LSAP contracts. And I would invite Ann Slaughter up to give us a little more background and answer any questions.
Okay, so my memo kind of sums up what you have in front of you. Been, prefacing the many pages of contracts. So I think most of you know that we have contractual relationships with the 4 LSAPs or ILS consortia that receive direct support from us. We are currently in the 3rd year of a 3-year contract. So as Deirdre and Paul both mentioned in their respective reports, we are working on a different way to handle these relationships. For fiscal 20, working on developing an annual grant process and a revised formula for distributing financial support. So in the meantime, we are doing a 1-year contract with what will at the time be 3 remaining LSAPs. All of the current members of MAGIC are joining SWAN. They'll go live in SWAN before this fiscal year ends. So we'll start fiscal 19 with 3 LSAPs. So what we did with fiscal 19 is we tried to stick as closely as possible to the model that we established with the 16 through 18 contracts. But of course, some things had to change because the landscape has changed and continues to change. So we had to account for the fact that Prairie Cat is moving to employ their own staff. That will be in effect July 1. So there were significant revisions to the appendix that spells out the in-kind services that they receive from us, which rebalances what their support looks like. So the way the support allocation works is we calculate based on the formula how much support each LSAP will receive from us, and then we deduct the amount that we spend on providing them any in-kind services they receive from us. And if there is anything left in their allocation, they receive that as direct financial support. So Prairie Cat is now moving from paying us, and if there's the LSAP will pay us fees if, we're spending more than they're allocated. So Prairie Cat is moving from paying us fees to us giving them direct financial support because they are receiving much less in-kind services with taking out the personnel from our budget. So that's a big change. RSAs really isn't changing at all. They're just keeping as is. And Swan, we actually revised their contract in fiscal 17 to reflect their move from the Burr Ridge facility. So their contract has already changed. We also recalculated the formula to account for there only being 3 LSAPs and Swan having more members. So that, I think, sums up in more detail the changes from the contracts we have currently in effect. These are mostly final. All 3 of the LSAP boards will be voting on these contracts for your next meeting. So we will bring them to you for approval in February. So do you have any questions?
It's complex.
Yeah, and there's no it's not linear, right?
No.
Like there's no everyone has a different way into it.
So is it likely that the boards of the LSAPs will request changes to the contract?
No, they've all been reviewed by everyone's attorneys. The boards have all reviewed them and are happy with the language, so they're all satisfied with them as they are right now.
And the goal of this is setting the stage too for making further changes to adding in additional consortia, like those Pinnacle people that apparently meet on the 3rd Friday of the month.
Yeah, this just kind of gets us through the year
bridge.
in between. Yeah.
Right.
It's a bridge year.
But going forward, it will be an annual process as opposed to a 3-year process. And then there's potentially going to be additional consortia that will be turned into, it's like you have a magic wand turned into LSAPs.
Yes, yeah, that grant process will be open to any consortium in the rail service area to apply for.
And as I reported earlier, there's some, potential movement of the NIC consortium towards Prairie Cat or individual libraries. So there's, it's fluid.
Yes.
In a good way.
So
this is just for discussion at this point.
Yes, there's no
Just to
action.
give you
We're
some-
being, next month there will be action. So does anyone have any questions for Anne? No? All right, well, thank you so much,
Thanks.
Anne.
Okay.
So then moving on to unfinished business, strategic planning.
Yes, so I did just want to tell you again about what our process is going to be. And so we are working on a couple of feedback mechanisms at this point. Mary is crafting Mary Witt, a needs assessment that we're going to be sending out to libraries to ask what their needs are. And we're going to be having more conversations as we did last week at the member update, in terms of the question is, what keeps you up at night? That seems to be a very thought-provoking question. We've been getting great answers, things related to the social problems in libraries, of course, funding issues like the property tax, but also, training, how important training is to libraries, and how important, given the funding situation, that they can rely on Rails for training and rely on Rails for cooperative purchases that, help the libraries save money. The unserved is certainly an issue for some people. Trying to remember, what were some of the other, and of course Jane sent me her notes and I didn't bring them, but
serving diverse audiences.
So, yeah, right, serving diverse audiences. Anything else jump out at you? Funding. Well, there's lots of them. And I'm also going to be going on what we're calling a listening tour. We're trying to schedule these meetings around the system over the course of the next couple of months to hear more about what keeps people up at night. So, and probably we should do that at a board meeting.
I was going to say, are we going to do the...
Yes.
So we can stay up at night thinking about what keeps us up at night.
Maybe that's what keeps you up at night.
Yeah.
And we did it at the consortia committee, as Paul said, and that was yeah, that's right. You were there too. It was interesting.
Glenn.
Yep.
So I have a question. Have you been getting much response from academic libraries in what you've gathered so far?
At the member update, we certainly, especially from the people who were streaming, we got feedback from different types of libraries. I would not say that we've gotten a lot of feedback from academic libraries, no, because they're not as present at these events.
Well, if you were interested, we could try and set up a special session with streaming for academic libraries to target.
That'd be great. Yeah, we were
happy to help you with that.
going to approach you about something like that.
We also hope to reach them with a survey, if you could help us get people to respond to that as well.
And I don't know if that would also work for other, like school libraries or special libraries or other libraries that need.
Yeah, this is Laura on the phone. I was just going to say the same thing. If you wanted to do something with special libraries, I could help coordinate that.
That would be great, and thank you, Laura and Gwen. And Laura was actually at the member update and offered some feedback about the perils of corporate, special librarianship and some changes.
Gwen had some really fascinating insights, because I've never worked in an academic library, so at the consortia committee, that really, I think, helped open our eyes to like, oh, well, we didn't even realize that was stuff you had to think about. So it helps us sit in other people's shoes. No, that's not right. But see it differently.
Right. And we did have a number of school librarians at the member update, and we did hear, yeah. So that's just a little update.
So are we also going to, and I just thought of this as you were speaking, are we also going to use this as an opportunity to tie it into like membership standards and how we'll be incorporating that into the strategic plan, and what keeps people up at night about the membership standards, if anything, or what areas around that as well?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we're not going to throw anything out. We're just trying to, it's more of like, what are we missing? Yeah.
Right. Does anyone have any additional questions or comments for Dee around the strategic plan? So then we'll plan maybe for next month to...
Sure, we could do that.
Do a brainstorming? Yep. Okay. Write that down here. here, even though I'm sure Emily is taking like, super detailed notes. So
Hope so.
She always does. So next up, we have the overlay budget. Jane and Dee had included a memo in our packet about the overlay project. But Jane, would you like to give us a summary or add anything else?
Absolutely. As you can probably tell from the memo, a lot has been happening since our November board meeting. And I just want to highlight a few things and with a few updates as well. Contract negotiations with Autographics went really well. We worked directly with Paul Cope, president of Autographics, and he worked really hard to come up with a pricing structure that accommodates our needs to begin with a small pilot and build gradually from there. So we're very pleased with that, and that was new for them. They typically don't start with pilot projects, so and they're very excited about the project as well. Recruitment for the pilot has also been going well. As of right now, we have 18 confirmed libraries, and most notably this week, if I may say so, Glenn, Daily Library at UIC has agreed to join. So we do have 3 academics, very pleased with that. So that leaves 2 of the iShare slots unfilled. Yesterday was the deadline. I do have 3 Prairie Cat libraries on the waiting list. I will be contacting them, and if they're all still interested, I think we'll find a way to work all 3 of them in. So that's all good. We are ready to begin implementation beginning of February. We have a call set up with Autographics to learn more about the timeline and their implementation process next week. So in the memo, we've outlined the budget information for the pilot, including the one-time costs for the pilot, the annual base fee, enhanced content. We are also working with Baker and Taylor, and we think that cost will be more in the order of $5,200. And the other advantage of going with Baker and Taylor is that the options available in Content Cafe, there's more content that we'll get versus strictly jacket art. And then the budget also includes some money for software development to add some reciprocal borrowing functionality, which was had a lot of interest early on at the consortium committee and was added at their recommendation. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
And I just want to say a few more things. I want to really commend Jane for her leadership on this project. This has been going on for 4 years, I think.
It's 2013 is when we started really working.
It's been difficult. It's been complex in terms of from everything from, selecting the software. Well, that was later. I mean, but finding software that was really in existence.
Seeing what other people do.
Identifying what software really works. Kind of cutting through some of the sort of the political baggage around this or emotional baggage because this has been tried before and didn't work. That's always hard. And then, as you say, the contract negotiations were, I thought, fantastic. Rob McGee, who you wanted to have help us, was tremendous. I'm really excited about this, and I'm particularly excited that UIC is going to participate. I think it was a very enlightening conversation that the 3 of us had, you and Mary and me, back in whenever that was, December. The value of UIC as a public institution, tax funded, participating in something like this with other, publicly funded organizations and sharing across type is just fantastic for all of us, and I think for the end users, and that's what this has been all about from the beginning. I think ultimately, maybe not even ultimately, but at some point in the not-too-distant future, this software has the capability to be, to provide access for bibliographic records, it's an interlibrary loan system. It is going to provide options for libraries that either can't afford OCLC or want an option. So I think, finally we are about to launch something that is going to change the landscape. I really believe that in Illinois, the resource sharing landscape, and it is awesome. So thank you, Jane, on behalf of everyone.
Support.
And thank you, Paul. And I
for
know
your
lots of people have
efforts.
been heavily involved in this, but I think without Jane's leadership, it would have faltered. So.
If I may add something that dovetails with something we talked about the consortium committee meeting, two consortium, Rails Prairie Cat and RSA, spoke with Sky River thanks to some
Yes,
work.
Interesting. Thank you, Paul.
Yep,
Yes.
some work that Rails that Rails had done to facilitate a relationship with Sky River. Now, many libraries in the state use OCLC, as Dee indicated, for bibliographic records. Two key functions that OCLC provides for libraries are interlibrary loan and bibliographic records. And OCLC is a dominant player in the bibliographic record markets. Sky River is an alternative source of bibliographic records that was actually started by the previous owner of III, Innovative Interfaces, which was one of the key players in the integrated library system industry. They remain in that marketplace to provide bibliographic records, though not interlibrary loan, as a subsidiary of III. The fascinating part is that the quotes that RSA and Prairie Cat got, where, if I'm getting my percentages correctly, RSA would see a 90% savings in their bills if I switch into Sky River. Now, you do have to remember, Sky River, that does not include ILL costs, so there would need to be alternatives for that, whether it's continuing with OCLC or looking at Findmore, Illinois, and Prairie Cat could conceivably realize 75% in savings, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
For libraries,
Yeah.
for patrons, for consortia.
And
It's really.
And the quoting was done in a very transparent way, as opposed to how we receive our OCLC pricing.
Right.
Yes. Yes, you are correct, ma'am.
You can actually follow the numbers back so that they make sense.
So it's really, I think you're seeing the fruition here of Rails' multi-pronged approach to provide better resource sharing options for its membership with both the Findmore Illinois project, which is a great name, by the way, but also, soliciting partnerships with vendors such as Sky River. Because my understanding is both consortia had tried to work with Sky River in the past, but communication had not been as well as it is now when facilitated by Rails.
Right, so.
I would also add that we are including the Share It copy cataloging module in our pilot to test that out, so that will also be another source of bibliographic records. And there are, my understanding is there are reciprocal arrangements with other Share It consortia, so we're not just talking bibliographic records from the 20 participating libraries. It's bigger potential than that.
So I think it's actually reasonable to believe that when the OCLC contract, statewide, group services contract is up for renewal, we might actually have a viable alternative, which is always a stumbling block because
there's not been
there has just been no clear path.
Yeah.
So it's great for all those reasons.
Would you like a motion, ma'am?
Yes.
I would love a motion to approve moving forward with the Findmore, Illinois pilot project of software development for reciprocal borrowing functionality.
So moved.
With a projected first-year budget of $172,000.
So moved.
Thanks, Paul. May I have a second? Thanks, Gwen. Is there any other discussion on this? All right, I'm going to have Emily do roll.
Christine Barr.
Yes.
Dave Barry.
Yes.
Sue Busenbark.
Yes.
Judy Crocker.
Yes.
Gwen Gregory.
Yes.
Kate Hall.
Yes.
Laura Keys.
Yes.
Paul Mills.
An enthusiastic yes.
Scott Poynton.
Yes.
Nadia Shake.
Yes.
Michelle Simmons.
Yes.
Laura Turner.
Yes.
Wonderful. And thank you again,
Fabulous.
Jane. Now the hard work can continue.
Starting to get to the actual implementation.
Yes. And so this dovetails very nicely into our next topic, which
It does.
covers
That
board
is true.
development,
Yes.
which is service to the unserved, which Find More Illinois will certainly help, but there are other things afoot. And so,
Right.
Dee, would you like to share?
Yeah, so I thought this would be useful and interesting for everyone to understand. And I did provide you with some statistics as well as a plan that this board adopted to try to deal with some of these issues. And Veranda may help me out as related to this. So I did include, first of all, a map, an in-color map that looks like this, just so you are all
I love this. Well, I don't love this
graphically-
map,
I
but it's
know.
so helpful.
Graphically aware that, the white space is unserved areas. That's a lot of unserved areas. And I thought it was also, it's important for us all to remember that this is not a downstate problem, that the highest number of Illinois residents who live in, the highest number per county, Cook is number 1 and DuPage is number 2. So where we are currently sitting is unserved, which is very ironic. And yes. We've had over the past, year, we've had some very useful and hopeful conversations with the State Library and with Heartland about the issues and, possible solutions. And I think that the group that talked about it, we all came to an agreement that, a consensus that really the idea that there was going to be a big legislative and additional revenue-based solution to this problem. In other words, there would be more tax dollars that would be, directed towards serving the unserved. It's probably not a realistic expectation at this point, but that doesn't mean that we can't keep trying in different ways. So we've had have successfully used intergovernmental agreements in different communities. Peoria, I think, was the first one.
Yes.
The Peoria Public Library to sign an agreement with the school district there to ensure that the children in the schools, all of the children, whether they lived in an untaxed or a taxed area, could use the public library, and then other communities have followed suit. There have been 1 or 2 new public libraries that have been started that will serve in previously unserved areas, so that's another small improvement. We've also are working with someone right now on a pro bono basis who is interested in, she works for Imagine magazine.
It's I think the bottom line is it's a marketing firm,
It's a
but they're
marketing
like
firm, and
content advocacy.
Right. She's very interested in this, and she's is willing to help us develop a campaign, and we're trying to
Excited
figure
about
out how to go about that in some particular area. It's probably important to talk a little bit about what the rules are about this and why we have untaxed areas. I guess we know why we have untaxed areas, because residents can vote to tax or not tax themselves. But we do have rules about who can get a library card, and if you do not live in a taxed area, you have to pay for a library card annually at your closest public library. Although there is also part of the administrative rules that allows for you to use a library that maybe is where you work as opposed to where you live, and that is called commonality of community interest is the way that is.
And that case must be stated.
And that must be stated.
Yeah.
It does produce a lot of revenue every year. I think well, I guess it's not a lot, but it's $1.5 million in revenue across the state to libraries, the sale of library cards, which, can mean a lot to an individual library that doesn't have a big budget, which is why this is often quite a contentious issue between neighboring libraries, etc. The Warren County Library, Michelle is a trustee there. She's on our board. They are interested. We've been working with them on a project maybe where they would identify some section. Warren County is completely served, but there is a town in Warren County, just as an example, that is half in Mercer County. That part of the town is unserved, so which makes for a lot of difficulties in the town. Yep. And in terms of who can use the library and who can't, and so we're trying to identify some situations like that where maybe we could, Rails could fund these non-resident cards, and we could because I think part of the problem, and this is what we've been talking to our marketing colleague about, is lack of awareness of what libraries really can provide.
It's like the free gym membership for people.
Right.
Go all in.
Right. So, we're going to continue to work away at this. Heartland is working on it as well. They had an interesting program down there, Reader's Bridge, where they had set up some libraries, I think in the Effingham area, had, pardon me?
No.
No, had sort of banded together to set up a sort of people could donate to a fund, and the fund would be used to buy library cards for unserved residents in this particular area. So,
it just seems like that would also dovetail nicely with library foundations or friends groups,
right,
where they could solicit specifically. It's always helpful when you have a specific reason you're asking for money.
There are some that are doing that in
like
Rails
that.
region.
So it certainly doesn't affect every library, everybody on this board, but it affects a lot of people on this board, a lot of public libraries
And
on
schools,
this
it's an impact
and,
schools
and
as
certainly, right. So, anything you would like to add, Veronica?
And of course, I defer to our colleagues at the Illinois State Library on this.
Absolutely.
Just that those fees that are paid by individuals who are untaxed, unserved, they're formulas based on administrative code. Those formulas must be followed so that untaxed residents are treated the same as taxed residents. If any of your libraries, because there are more variations on the theme than we have time to discuss, and those of you who are in public libraries or use public libraries know that's the case. Rails is here to help you. And in my head, I think we've heard it all, and I've never heard it all. But please feel free to call us. Sometimes we hear directly from patrons, and in those cases, we try to circle back to what we believe is their serving public library. When I mentioned, when I followed up on Dee's comment about commonality of community interest, there's no law that you have to report why you're using it, but since it's so confusing that you are not at your nearest public library, we at Rails are just kind of happy to work with you. The best strategies to articulate that to your community, it's best to let libraries in the area know and help you think through what some of the, what kind of precedent that might set in terms of service. So we would love to talk to you if that becomes a case.
This is kind of the opposite of what you're stating, but I know that what I've often experienced is people that live within the same distance to multiple libraries. So then the distance issue becomes a factor because it's like, well, it could be one of 3 different libraries.
Yep, we've had that case.
And then they tend to kind of shop around for what, you know, because like depending on whether you're using the tax bill method or you're using the flat billing method, the formulary based.
General mathematical formula, yeah.
It's true.
Isn't that supposed to fall back on where their kids go to school and then where most of the kids in that school have public library cards?
But it's still, in this area, there's a community, Indian Head Park.
Right.
They are within 2 miles of 4 libraries and all served by the same school district.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, there's some interesting cases.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I have to commend Veranda and Amanda Musacchio, who's not here right now, for their help because we had a new development that was happening in Northbrook in an unserved area, and we'd never encountered this before. And we were like, well, and we had people that started calling us saying, well, when we're looking at purchasing property here, can we buy a card before occupancy permits had been issued, but they'd already purchased the land, and how does that work? And we were like, we don't know how that works because we've never experienced this before. And so Veranda and Amanda were great about digging into it and figuring out what the answer was.
And often when a group, just really quickly, a community may decide not to opt into a library tax, the challenge is a lot of realtors may or may not be aware of that. So people are purchasing a home thinking they're in a taxed area.
Yep.
And they're in a city that's a taxed area. So it really can cause a lot of frustration. So that's part of why we really want to be a resource to you as you frontline people on your teams have to be the messenger of what's sometimes confusing. You know, it's silent on some issues. There's just too many variations on the theme.
People get angry.
There's a little frustration sometimes.
Which is fair, because you don't realize. They assume it's one way, and then they find out.
Yeah, of course. It's hard.
And so library staff, frontline staff who are probably inevitably the least knowledgeable about the scope of this problem are the ones that have to take the complaints and try to answer the questions about something that's very complex.
Yeah.
And spend a lot of time looking at Department of Revenue maps, and it's just a waste of staff time.
And it doesn't make libraries look good
a
either.
Negative message.
Yeah,
It's just
it's hard.
a bad situation. So.
But yeah, and I know some of, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I have a question. Is the cost of a library card consistent throughout the state, or does that go by library to library?
Not at all.
Or county to county?
And if you're interested in seeing what people charge, Sue, in library learning, every year we have to update whether we use a flat method or whether people have to bring in their tax bill, and we calculate it based on the equalized assessed value of their property, and then that gets updated every year in L2.
By code, it has to be updated.
Yes.
It's an L2 and it's on the Rails site, and so we can send that to you. Can just see the list of. I mean,
I was just curious.
It's from $600 to $30. It's like from $30 to $600.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sue, it's basically the library that would be selling the library card. They charge. The idea is that they're going to charge something similar to what their average taxpayer that supports them pays per year. And obviously, if you take 100 public libraries, they're all over the board as far as how much support they get from their public. So.
And that also determines kind of what method you go with. At my last library, the homes were all about the same price. So we did a flat, we used the general mathematical formula so that we could just tell people a dollar amount.
Yeah.
But at Northbrook, we have a very wide range of home values, and we don't want to punish people that have a $300,000 home for the people that have the $2.5 million home.
Yeah.
So we have them bring in their tax bill and calculate it off of that.
Okay.
And just to say, Just to reiterate, I mean, the amount of time that is spent on stuff
Oh
like
my
that
gosh.
is
Yeah,
just,
I can't
it's
imagine what
unbelievable.
the-
Yeah.
So,
It is.
and it doesn't further library service.
We have a
So-
nifty little spreadsheet that staff could have plug
I
numbers
want
into.
to see that.
My brilliant finance and operations manager created it. So
Great,
let me
that's
know.
good,
Yeah.
because that is very challenging when you use a tax bill method and you're working the front desk.
Oh, well, yeah, because you have a million things going on.
Yeah.
Right.
So, are there any additional questions? That was a great one, Sue.
It was.
Well, thank you for the insight. Thank you for
bet.
the insight.
I'd just like to add that this is a concern for academic libraries because I think many academic libraries, first of all, don't realize that this is a thing. They don't know. So that's like I'm always telling people and they go, what, really? And then also that we sometimes assume that our users have some public library that they can go to do public library things, and that obviously is not the case. You know, most of our students live in Cook County, but they live all over the place.
Right.
So many of them live, and I know some staff people that I work with at the library that live in unserved areas. So it's definitely a concern for us as well.
Well, in terms of determining what services you're offering,
Right.
because, why do we need to have a popular fiction collection? They should go to their public library, but that might not be something they can do.
Why fight for Illinois is going to be awesome.
So, excellent point, Glenn.
I do have a question. Dee, I just want to make sure I understand the document that you sent us. See your memo on the front page, but then the other pages have a header of October 2016. Were these goals that were made in October 2016?
It was a plan that was adopted by the board, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, how are you looking for these eventually to be discussed and revised?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought.
I mean, it's still that's still the plan that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
we haven't checked anything off yet.
That's what I thought.
But this would also continue to be incorporated into the strategic plan.
Right.
And I would imagine that when we are reviewing that would be a good opportunity to review this as well. Potentially.
Right.
So. All right. Any additional?
Yeah, from the state
Questions?
library. I mean,
Oh, great, Greg. Yeah.
so it's more comment, and certainly, yes, this is an ongoing discussion we often have with Rail staff members, et cetera. There's some things I did want to bring to your attention. And one of those is, in part of the plan, was the usefulness of the Department of Revenue map, and yes, that can be cumbersome. Just last week, we previewed an update to that, which takes the white areas that you're seeing on the attachment you have in your report, and takes them to Google Aerial View. And you can actually see where a house sits, and then it will place you in the school district, which is the first choice. Scott's point about that is correct. Then there are some other areas where you might go to the whole, I will say honestly, quite broad area of commonality of community interest in selecting another card. But it will put you in the school district. It will also put you in the closest public library, and we're trying to get the branches added into that as well, so you can actually get. But I think even more interesting, and when we were looking at it, is when you start clicking on the white areas that we think there's so much of, there's simply nothing to tax there. Because it's going to be property that is exempt, and for whatever reason it's already drawn in. But it's going to be very useful for the group that's looking at this at the system level, and with the state library, but also then that we educate the public libraries and those people on the front line on how they might use that tool more effectively at the desk where they're selling those. And where just now finishing the help guide on how to use that. Is why it's not been announced to you, but that will be out to all of you very, very shortly.
Well, I'm excited. That sounds really fun.
Those were, yeah. Rhonda and Amanda.
I can't wait to tell her.
Right?
Be like Christmas
So-
at Rails.
And is
Well,
it
I don't know about that,
mobile
but you
acceptance
know.
as well? So, well, thanks for that
Well,
update.
everything helps dealing with the present, right? I mean,
Sure.
doesn't mean we can't try to change it, but that's great. That's good news.
All right, do we have any final questions or comments on the service to the unserved? At least for right now. Okay, then moving on to Rail's board member reports, I'm going to ask if anyone else has anything, but I did want to mention to everyone that the ILA legislative breakfasts are coming up in February. If you have not attended one, we have them throughout the entire state on different days in February, and you can check the ILA website at ila.org. This is a great opportunity to connect with your local legislators, whether it's frontline staff, library managers, library directors, trustees, from whatever type of library you come from, and also get updates on different legislative issues affecting us, both at the state level as well as federally. I'm sure that I know one of the things that keeps me up at night is net neutrality.
Yep.
So that's something that will definitely be discussed at these, and I would encourage all of you, if you are able to attend, they're either a breakfast or a lunch.
First one's Monday,
I think
actually.
it's already Monday. Oh, you're right.
It's January 29th.
It's January 29th.
Yeah.
Okay, so take a look at the ILA website. You can still register, and I hope that everyone will be able to attend. If you're going to the north side, I will be at the Arboretum Club in Buffalo Grove on February 19th, which is President's Day, and would love to see other people there with me, or at whatever venue you choose. So does anyone have any other reports that they would like to share?
Yeah, I'm just very happy to report that we've been partnering, my library district has been partnering with the Southwest Suburban Immigrant Project throughout 2017, and we're continuing that into 2018 to offer citizenship prep classes. They're about 10 weeks long. Each course is once a week for about 10 weeks. We did one in early 2017 at our Crest Hill location. It was very successful. I was one of the tutors, one of the volunteers. One of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my career, I think. They offered a second round in the fall of 2017, same location, it went very well. They're coming back to do Crest Hill again this spring, and we're adding our Romanville branch as another location. So it's really growing, and there's so many folks that want to become citizens, and it's great to work with them and help them pass their tests, their citizenship tests. So.
Thank you, that's great. Yeah. Any other updates? No one can top that, so. All right, so then, oh, did someone say something? No? Okay. So then moving on to agenda building, the next meeting is Friday, February 23rd. Also my half birthday. Just putting that out there at 1 p.m. And sorry, this is still a holdout from when I was in school, when my birthday is in August, so you didn't get to celebrate.
I feel your pain.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll have a discussion of the nominating committee appointments, because it's getting close to our election cycle, and then we'll also be doing some strategic planning brainstorming then. But does anyone have any additional items for the agenda?
The LSEP contracts.
Oh, the LSEP, yes. That would probably be a good thing to have on there. I mean, I'm sure it would have made it on there without. Any other items? All right, well, thank you to everyone that attended. I'm declaring this meeting adjourned at 2:38 p.m. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.